Hi everyone, it's Lisa, and I've got a dish here that's really kind of interesting, I think, because it's good for, you can do a breakfast with it, or a lunch, or even supper. So it's pretty flexible. I learned about it a few years ago, and I make it fairly often because it's not too difficult to cook. You can get the ingredients so fairly easily, and it's just a nice dish to know how to make because if you need to throw something on in a hurry, it works really well. So I'll just get into the slides here. And I'm calling it eggs poached in sauce, although you might find it in recipe books under the name Shakshuka. And so it's this North African dish, really, or Middle Eastern. And the idea is that they use the heat from a sauce. It could be tomato sauce, or you can also use spinach if you don't like tomatoes. And the sauce can be used to cook entire eggs in it. So it's a really good way to use up leftover sauce or vegetables. And in general, make sure you're getting enough vegetables to eat without having it be too obvious. So here's how to do it. One thing that's really handy for this dish is to have a deep skillet or frying pan, or a saucepan that hasn't got very high edges on it. So here I've got this kind of au gratin dish, I think it is, or a pan on the left-hand side, and it's all steel with steel handles, which is really useful because I can just do stuff on the stove top, and then I can stick it into the oven if I need to. So if I'm making enough for like 2 or 3 or 4 people, I'd use this bigger dish. Now usually it's just me on my own, so I've got this smaller thing that I found in a thrift shop. It's just a saucepan with a fairly shallow profile, and I just do it all on the stovetop in that case, and so um, again, you don't need a special dish for this. You can just use a regular saucepan or a frying pan. That works fine. Although with the frying pan, you might want to make sure that it's like stainless steel and not uh, a cast iron one, because although it's possible to use cast iron for shakshuka, the thing is that the tomato juice may corrode the inside of the pan. And even if it's really well seasoned, that can happen. So stainless steel works really well, because you can just stick it into the oven as well as using it on the stovetop if you got one of those all metal ones. Anyway, so just a quick thing there. So what you'll need for this is some leftover tomato sauce. Again, if you're doing spaghetti, or you've done one of the recipes that I talked about elsewhere on this video series, you might have some leftover sauce. So this is great for using that up. If you haven't got leftover sauce, you can make it from scratch here using a large can of tomatoes. So large is in like 28 ounces or so. And it doesn't really matter what kind of tomatoes you use. There's one here from Unico that's got kind of pureed or like a thicker type of sauce that has more tomatoes in it. And then there's a regular type with uh, just the juice of the tomatoes, and that's from Elmer. But either of these works really well, no problem. You'll need some olive oil or equivalent cooking oil, and any kind of seasonings that you really enjoy. So things like salt, black pepper, garlic, chili pepper flakes are good, or even chopped up raw chili peppers, paprika, coriander. I guess because this is a Mediterranean dish, that things like cumin can be really helpful for that. I can take or leave cumin. I mean, I'm not a huge fan, but I will eat it. But I've ended up just using Italian spices for this one because they are handy. And you'll need some chopped onions or other vegetables to make your sauce. And again, you can use Tony's roasted vegetable recipe, which is elsewhere on this site. And what here I am just roasting some eggplants at the bottom there, and let's see, onions and sweet peppers on the right-hand tray, and a bunch of carrots on the left-hand tray. So I've just kind of put some olive oil and some herbs on them, and I'm just letting them roast in an oven there. And again, it's a nice way to get the vegetables used up before they go bad. And also, because they're already prepared, you're more likely to use them in dishes. So I've got a couple of bags of these things in my freezer that I just use for these kinds of dishes, and it works out really well, very convenient. So for the eggs, you'll need 1 to 3 eggs per person, depending on how big a meal you want to make it. So I usually make just 1 or 2 for myself, but your mileage may vary. Some people suggest using a bit of tomato paste as well to make the sauce a bit thicker, and that sounds really good to me. And if you want to put a topping on, maybe some cheese, could be feta or cheddar or anything that you like there, or any cheese equivalent if you're vegan. So again, it's a pretty flexible recipe, which is what I like about it. You can just customize it based on what you like and what you've got available. You can also use stuff like shredded greens, fresh things like spinach or kale leaves. Chard works. I've heard people using beet greens, cilantro, parsley, whatever you like again. And I'm just chopping up some spinach here. So if you haven't got the pre-made sauce, you can just, do it from scratch here. What I'm doing is I've got that au gratin pan and I'm putting some chopped onions and some oil and just kind of sauteing them until they turn kind of golden in color. So I'm in the middle of doing that in this pick. And once the onions get soft, you can add in other vegetables to soften them up. And like if you're doing kale, for example, chopping up the stem separately, stripping the leaves off, chopping the stems up and putting them in here to soften up a bit can be really helpful. Okay, so once you got your vegetables sorted out like that, you can add your tomatoes and just kind of simmer it for a while until it gets, nice and savory. Here's what it looked like after I put the roasted vegetables in. I just kind of chopped up some of those eggplants and carrots and peppers and things that we're roasting and put them in the sauce like that. So you can see it's really got a lot of color in it already. So you can mix in the leafy greens. They cook really quickly. So I've just got the spinach in here and I'm just kind of stirring it into the sauce like that. And when you've got it to your satisfaction, I like to do this before the spinach even melts in because I know it cooks really quickly and I like to have a bit of green in the sauce still. So when you've got it all set up like that, you can start to use a spoon to make some depressions in the sauce. So just kind of scoop out little holes in the sauce like that. I'm doing that here with the spoon. And then you can crack the eggs in. So it's a little bit sloppy here. Some people like to crack them into a little dish and then pour it in so it gives them a bit more control, but I just kind of crack them in and kind of drop them into those little holes like that. So I've got 4 eggs here, whole eggs just cooking in there. And so I've got the thing still on the stovetop. You can put it in the oven though, that seems to work well too. But I just do it on the stovetop here just because it's easier to see. So I've been watching them here, and you can see you can sometimes put a lid on, and that can help speed things up a bit. But you can see that one of the eggs is already getting kind of done because the white of the egg is cooking there. And so I'm just kind of getting ready to take the egg out because it's almost finished. And again, just keep an eye on the eggs and you can see them cooking. And as long as you take them out when you want to have them at a certain um, quality of doneness, that's up to you. So again, you can let them cook until they're fairly hard, like hard boiled, or you can just take them out when they're still kind of runny, and that works just as well too. So you can serve them on top of rice, for example. So here I am, I've put the eggs on top of some leftover rice that I had, and that works. Or you can just serve them with bread, and they both seem to work pretty well that way. Okay, and if you don't like tomatoes, you can also use some greens, just like spinach and beet leaves, to make sauce. And there's a recipe for that in the YouTube description that I've got for this particular video. Okay, so again, good luck and enjoy. Take care. Bye bye.